Um, so what we do in the Career Services Office is our job is just to engage you in the career planning process. So this means self-assessment, world of work, everything that you want to do. So we're there to help you, and to meet that mission, we have a couple of different things that we provide. First, we offer MyCat Careers. So if you guys are familiar with MyCat Careers, I highly recommend you go check it out. It is our job listing website, so it posts all part-time work, full-time employment, and it's most importantly internships. And we also offer it for alumni, so after you graduate, you can still continue to use MyCat Careers. So it's just a really easy way, especially if you're staying in Bozeman or Montana. A lot of local employers do post on MyCat Careers. So if you're not going there, you're missing out on a huge chunk. I highly recommend it. If you have any questions about it, come down and see me. We also offer career coaching and advising. And so we have dedicated staff that actually will talk to you about if you're thinking about what you're going to do with your major, if you're changing directions, what you're going to do when you graduate. These are all awesome questions, and we have coaches that are here to help you figure that out. And obviously, you can go as many times as you want. It doesn't cost you anything, and you get champ change. They also offer resume critiques and mock interviews. These obviously you should definitely go for resumes no matter what. If you have an interview coming up, I can't express how helpful mock interviews really are. They also can videotape them for you, which is incredibly helpful if you have no idea how to portray yourself. It's either peace of mind that you're doing great, or they'll tell you ways to fix it. So again, this is a good service for you. We offer on-campus interviews, especially during career fairs. Employers do come and actually come to campus and interview students, so they make it as easy as possible for you. So we coordinate that. Like I said, we offer the employment for alumni after you graduate. If you're still having trouble finding a job, go ahead and use MyCat Careers. And then we have career fairs, obviously workshops like this and presentations. So this is how we like to think about the whole job process and career process in general. The very first step, we really want you to think about who you are. You really shouldn't be starting out on your job search or even career thoughts before you know who you are and what you want to be. That's incredibly important. And we have success coaches in the Office of Student Success that can help you with that, what motivates you, what your skills are, what you want, personality, accomplishments. All these things are really important. So figure that out first. Then you should go on to the world of work. So that is what you can possibly do in that field that you are thinking of. We additionally have tons of sources that can help you with that, including like strong inventories, which really shows you, so it's a test that you can do and shows you what you like, what you don't like, and you might be surprised. I'm surprised when I took mine. Next step is goal setting. So this is, do you want to do an internship? The answer is yes. What type of path, major, minor, all that kind of stuff. And then the very, very, very last part is the job search. If you go through all these steps, job search is going to be a breeze. If you go straight from self-assessment to job search, which sometimes people do, it's going to hurt. So we really recommend this circular process, and you could go back to self-assessment at some point. So just keep that in mind in your college experience.
Charlie, do you want to start?
Sure.
Just introduce yourself.
Charlie Gatmeyer with the Bozeman Police Department. I've been with the department for a little over 18 years. I've served as a patrol officer, a detective for 10 years, and I'm kind of finishing up my career as a community resource officer. I deal with quality of life issues, maybe like loud party complaints, problem houses, things like that. So I don't anticipate we'll get very intimate or anything like that or meet each other, but deal with a lot of the issues that patrol officers don't have time to deal with. When they're responding to criminal issues or things on the fly, I kind of follow up and do a lot of that stuff.
Okay, well I guess we're going on, it's my turn.
Yeah.
My name is Corey Allen. I am the Chief Prosecutor at the City of Bozeman. The City Attorney's Office has 6 attorneys in it. There are 2 attorneys who only deal with civil issues, and there are 4 prosecutors. So my responsibilities, I prosecute cases for the City of Bozeman, and then I also help supervise and manage the other 3 prosecutors in the office. So that's kind of who I am, what I do right now. I think we're probably going to come back to how we got to where we are, but when Officer Gatmeyer investigates the loud party, I'm the one that prosecutes it. So.
Hi, I'm Denise Malloy. I used to have a voice until academic advising got into full swing. I am the pre-law and pre-med advisor here at MSU, and I'm also an attorney, so I will probably get into more details in a minute.
Go ahead and we'll just go right back.
Right back down the line, okay.
Tell us your life story.
Okay.
Start at the beginning.
Start with the DNA to the present.
Right.
Okay. Well, I never intended to go to law school. I wanted to be a teacher, and that's exactly what I did. So I went to my undergraduate school, and I was a teacher, and I was pretty miffed when I got called for jury duty. Didn't want to have to go do that. Didn't want to be away from my students. I really liked what I was doing, and so I was in Louisville, Kentucky, big city. So when you got called for jury duty, you literally went every day and sat in the jury pool where you would drown. It was pretty dismal in this big courthouse downtown, and got called into a criminal trial. And I thought, oh, this is awful. You know, I'm going to be away even longer. And then they started the trial, and it was like, oh. Wow, this is the coolest thing. I had no idea. And I fell in love with it. So I thought about it for several years, and then I ended up leaving the country. I went in the Peace Corps while I decided I'd figure out what I was going to do. Came back, went to law school, and spent several years working for a big law firm, clerked for a Court of Appeals judge, and I was prosecutor for several years too. And then due to not wanting to take yet another bar exam in the state of Montana, I have not practiced for quite a while, but you know, I'm really excited to be at MSU and helping students in the process.
Thank you.
Okay, my life story?
Yeah.
All right. Kind of like Denise, I didn't intend to go to law school. That was not the plan. My dad was an attorney. He did regulatory work first for the state and then for a gas utility in Great Falls. I grew up in Great Falls. But my dad was an attorney, and he kind of talked to me about what he did and his work and stuff, and I thought it was the most boring, horrible, awful, worst conversation you could possibly have. Just didn't do it for me at all. So law school is like on the bottom of my list. I started out my college career wanting to be an engineer, mechanical engineering. As I take it, I love to figure out how things worked and try and make things work better. So I thought it was a natural fit, and then I got in, finished my freshman year without any huge problems. Sophomore year, I forget which calculus it was, but it just beat me over the head and killed me. And so I started to reevaluate things. And so I switched from engineering to psychology. I decided that while I enjoyed working with things, I also enjoyed working with people. And started trying to fix problems with things, I tried to fix problems with people. And so I got my bachelor's degree in 2001 from Brigham Young University in psychology. For better or for worse, about 2 months before I graduated, I realized that if I kept working with people that had mental health issues, I myself was going to develop mental health issues. And so I started to panic a little bit and had to reevaluate things and decide where I'm going to go with this, since a career in psychology was not going to be good for me. And so, partially because of familiarity, and partially because I really do enjoy policy and politics and the law, just not utility regulation, I decided to go to law school and applied to schools mostly in the West. Ended up going to the University of Minnesota in Twin Cities. Spent 3 years there in law school. Law school, most programs are 3 years long. And graduated from University of Minnesota Law School in 2004 and took a job in Great Falls with a private law firm. And there are a lot of things you can do with a law degree. Law is probably, there's a better way to phrase this, I was going to say generic. You can use a law degree for a lot of different jobs. People kind of think that if you're a lawyer, that means you're in the courtroom, you're trying cases, which certainly there are a lot of lawyers out there that do that, but there are a lot of attorneys that do a lot of different things with a law degree. Small business owners, counselors, people who provide consulting. Consulting is the word I'm looking for, consulting advice to businesses, to government entities, to nonprofit organizations. There are a lot of things you can do with a law degree. So when I got out of law school, I enjoyed, actually my favorite classes were criminal law and criminal procedure. Those are the classes that I really did well and loved, paid attention to, showed up every day. But I took this job with a private law firm, partially because it was hiring, and also because it was back to Montana. And I wanted to find a way to get back to Montana. So I took that job, and I worked for the firm for about 2.5 years. I did primarily civil litigation, did some family law stuff, some contracts, construction laws, easements, pretty broad field of cases that I dealt with. And after 2.5 years with the firm, I thought, I kind of reached the conclusion that, this is okay, but I can do better. This isn't going to really be fulfilling for me for the next 20, 30 years. So, remembering back to law school and how much I enjoyed criminal law and criminal procedure, I applied for a job with the Lake County Attorney's Office in Bolson. They were hiring a prosecutor. And went through the interview process, and they hired me. And so I uprooted me and my family, moved to Polson, and I became a prosecutor. And being a prosecutor is very different from working in a law firm handling civil work. Your typical attorney in a civil practice has maybe 10 cases they're working on at any given time. They're very slow moving. They're very research intensive, paper intensive. Prosecution is different. Your caseload is 10 times that. Average prosecutor, you have 100 cases you're working on at a time. And they're fast, and they are, in my opinion, much more exciting, less paperwork, and you get to deal with great stories. It's like living Law and Order on TV. And so it kind of clicked. It lit that fire for me. This is it. Wow, zing. And so that was about 7 years ago, and I worked at the county attorney's office up until this past June, when I took a position here as the chief prosecutor for the city. So here for the city, I'm doing a lot of the same things, still prosecuting. And so there you go, that's all I got here.
Well, I always wanted to be a cop. I grew up here in Bozeman. My dad was the principal of the high school for about 27 years. And I always saw the police dogs at the basketball games, and I just loved the police dogs, I guess, when I was a little kid. And I saw the shiny badge and everything like that. I thought that was neat. And went to school here, and I was getting the second half of going to school here, and my parents were involved in a bad car crash where they're both seriously injured. So I had just started, back then it was on quarters, and I had to drop out to help take care of them. And I know I still wanted to be in law enforcement. I was actually looking at federal law enforcement, known a couple of federal agents, and they said, we'll sponsor you, we'll put in a good word for you, you'd be a great FBI agent. And I was married, and just newly married, and a little baby, and I was like, well, I'm here taking care of my parents, and I saw that the Law Enforcement Academy, which was here in Bozeman at the time, was opening up a hiring, or basically they're opening up a basic, they call it a basic academy. And it was actually just right over where the Law and Justice Center is right now. And it was a pretty pathetic looking building. But anyway, I decided, you know what the heck, I'm gonna go ahead and apply. I wasn't in school, I was taking care of my parents. And so I applied. It was intimidating. There was about 350 people applying at the same time for 20 positions, or actually 15 positions at the academy. And you would be what's called a pre-service officer, meaning I wasn't employed with a department yet. So I was intimidated, took the test, which was a series of tests. I ended up getting an interview. Didn't think the interview went great. I was offered a position a week later with the academy. So 10 weeks, now it's 14 weeks. I went through a 10-week academy. Even though I lived here, I had to live on the academy grounds. So I couldn't live at home. So I had to stay there. So anyway, went through that 10-week basic as a pre-service officer. That made me more marketable to other departments. So, because a department wouldn't then have to pay for you to go to the academy. You're paying for yourself. So I wrote myself a nice $2,500 check, or wrote them a nice $2,500 check and put myself through. 10 weeks later, graduated, I started getting offers, but I knew I wanted to be part of the Bozeman Police Department. So I did a lot of research with the department. Yeah, I grew up here, but I started doing ride-alongs. I started talking with a lot of the officers, talking with the detectives about the position, the rigors of the job, the demands, as well as Bozeman started to increase in population too. A year later, a position opened up with the department. I applied and I was hired. So that was 1995, yeah. And so I've just hit my 18th year in August. And since then, I started on patrol. As a police officer, you start on patrol. That's just how it is. In a lot of departments, it's a minimum of 3 years before there's advancement into other areas, like anything from K-9. In large departments, I have a friend, Los Angeles PD and Vegas Metro, that loved helicopters. So he's in the helicopter, the spotlight. He wanted to do that. We have everything from drug investigations to general investigations. And the larger the department, the larger the resources and the larger the opportunity. After 4 years, a detective position came open, and it didn't hurt that I caught a bank robber right before that, so it kind of looked good on the resume. And so right after that, I was in general detectives. I initially was going to do crimes against property crimes, like embezzlements, white-collar crimes. And actually, I was trained by the Secret Service in question document examination. So basically looking at forged documents and things like that. So that's a nice little side job as well for civil cases. I do that as well. And then I started getting cases involved crimes against people, like homicide investigations, rape investigations, sex assaults, you name it, kidnappings. I've been involved with the investigations. One of the lead investigators with the Jason Wright homicide, that involved a couple MSU, ex-MSU students here too as well. Very rewarding experience. While I was doing that, I also worked with federal agents. And it's funny, got a lot of pressure from a few of them saying, go back to school, get your degree, and become a federal agent. But working with federal agents, it has its ups and downs. As a police officer, I have a lot of freedom and discretion in my job regarding investigations. Federal agencies, I always say they have to call the mothership and get permission to do stuff where their main office is. But I've had the opportunity to testify in federal court, to be involved with testifying all around the state as well as in other states, working with federal agencies all the way from the Secret Service, CIA, FBI, DEA, ATF as well. And great opportunities in those programs as well. I've always felt that if you're going to be a federal agent, having worked with them, doing search warrants, doing interviews, things like that, if you're interested in a federal agency, I would strongly encourage starting in a municipality or a sheriff's department. You get your street smarts there. I've been involved with these where all of a sudden it's wide eyes, or dealing with suspects, or dealing with victims. Sure, you can be trained great, at Quantico or wherever you want to go for federal agencies, but those street smarts, if you're interested in law enforcement, they start with a municipality or a sheriff's department. And I suggest, going 2-3 years and then applying with a federal agency. Federal agencies like to see that, as well as if you maybe have a degree in accounting or a degree in a foreign language as well. Federal agencies like that. FBI, since 9/11, has totally directed all their efforts now to domestic terrorism. So bank robberies, they're not going to investigate it unless somebody's shot or killed in a bank robbery or they've taken all the money. So we investigate those. And they'll help us a little bit, but we investigate those. It's been a very rewarding and fun experience. It's a 20-year retirement, so I can retire in just a little under 2 years. so I can go get a real job, I guess, after that. But it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a great experience. The retirement for law enforcement officers in Montana is not great. If you go to a larger municipality, out of state like Los Angeles or New York, it's about 90% of what your wages is your retirement up to that. Unfortunately, not a lot of people hang around those departments. The average expectancy for an officer on a department is 6 to 8 years at the most. So I've gone through a lot of officers between them from the start of my career. More officers have left our department because one, it's something that's totally different than what I thought it would be. It's nothing what I thought it would be. Or they just went on to a different career. But that's the average right there. So, but like I said, it's a great career. I love it. And I would encourage anybody who wants to do it to do their research, ride with departments, get to know the officers, and specifically if you have a department of interest, do a lot of questioning, a lot of emails, do some research on the department.
We can open it up to questions. You guys have some questions for these guys, I'm sure.
How hard is it to get into law school if you don't have a degree, an undergraduate degree that tends to head in that area?
Not difficult at all. Every law school kind of has its own policy and priorities as far as what kind of student class you're looking for, but almost every law school is trying to achieve a student body that's very diverse in their undergraduate degree. So you don't have, the difficult degrees for law students are like political science, sociology.
History,
Yep. So,
English.
but they absolutely love those students that are coming from engineering or the hard sciences, chemistry, the non-traditional law backgrounds. So my advice on this, and maybe you disagree, but my advice is major in something that you're passionate about, that's something you're good at. And if it's not one of the traditional law degrees, that's okay. That actually might improve your chances.
Your experience in law school for both of you, for those students that weren't in those type of majors that typically go into law, is it more difficult for them? Is there a lot of catching up to do?
No, I was an education major. I taught school for 8 years before I went. I never had any class with the word law in it. And, they teach you everything you need to know. It would be, maybe a constitutional law class at the undergrad level would help, but you're not going to be at any disadvantage if you know nothing about the law. They'll teach you what they want you to know.
I would agree with that. I would add that in getting your undergraduate degree, that you focus and develop solid reading and writing skills. There's going to be a lot of reading and writing in law school.
And in fact, when students come in, they want, what should I major in? What's the right answer? And there is no right answer. In fact, the ABA will not endorse a particular major. What I tell students, the most important thing, hone your reading and writing skills and take upper division writing courses if at all possible. Take classes that will force you to write, because you are going to write and write a lot.
What about the exam to get into law school?
The LSAT?
Yeah. What's that like?
That is a beast of its own kind, and students come in, how do I study for it? Well, you don't really study for the LSAT, you prep for it. It's not like the MCAT, which is a knowledge-based test. You have to come in to the MCAT knowing organic chemistry, biology, math, sciences. The LSAT is a different beast. It has analytical thinking, it has logical thinking, and it has reading comprehension. And the test is purposely designed where you shouldn't be able to finish it. So it's a very stressful test. And I tell students, practice, 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 because you have to know how it feels at the 4th hour when your brain is absolutely fried, and you have to know how that feels. You have to know, oh, this is what I do when I get to question 30 and I still have more to go with about 2 minutes left. So it's a practice test, and students who practice and do probably 3 to 4 months of practice beforehand tend to do just fine.
And the practice has to be under test conditions.
Absolutely.
Timed, when that buzzer goes off, you're done.
Put the pencil down, yeah. The LSAT people don't have a sense of humor.
Go ahead.
So with the rising cost of education, as well as the rising unemployment, especially in law, going to law school, you're looking to spend upwards of $100 grand. How do you justify taking in that cost to get this professional education? And as someone who's possibly going into the field, what do you have to say to me to encourage me to continue and do law?
Oh, I don't know that I would encourage you to go into law. I would encourage you to go into law if you're passionate about that, if that's what you want to do with your career. I think far too many people go into law school because they're not sure what else they want to do after they graduate. And that can be dangerous because law school is expensive for the vast majority of people and the majority of schools. It's not a cheap 3 years by and large. So I think that before anyone should go to law school, they should be committed and absolutely convinced that that's what they want to do. So that said, there's a lot of law schools out there. There's a lot of lawyers out there. A lot of law schools out there. A lot of different tuition rates, a lot of scholarships. You can get through law school. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that not everyone is going to spend $100,000 to get a legal education. Now, if you're dead set, I'm going to Stanford and that's it, well, you already paid for it.
Yeah.
But if you are willing to go to a different school, if you're willing to work part-time, I mentioned my dad was an attorney. He went to a law school called William Mitchell. It was actually a 4-year program because it was part-time. They let their students work. And so he got out of law school with minimal debt because he was working while doing school. I think your average 3-year program is going to be too intense to have any kind of significant employment during law school. But there are options out there.
Well, and I would echo that. Don't go into it unless you're really passionate about it. And a lot of students who come in to visit with me, I want to talk about why do you want to go to law school, and because I don't know what else to do is probably not the best answer. It's too expensive. It's too much investment of your time and effort to not go into it with full knowledge about what it is you want to do. For some students, a graduate program might better meet their goals and objectives, and that's something that we talk about. If you want to proceed with the law, I really encourage it. I think that even if you never step foot in a courtroom, it's a great value-added type of degree. It's well respected despite all the lawyer jokes out there. It makes employers take notice. It teaches you a totally different way to think. It teaches you to write like you will have never written before. It's really a lot of fun if you choose to practice law. But I will tell you this based on my experience. If you watch TV shows, and I won't tell you what TV show influenced me to go to law school because that'll tell you exactly how old I am. I've never had a defendant crack on the stand under cross-examination, as much as I wanted that to happen, and I've never had a case wrap up in an hour. So, don't let that be your guide going, oh, it's like that in the movies and on TV, so.
Go ahead.
Officer Detmeyer.
Yeah.
I'm ex-military, and a lot of my buddies have been applying for law enforcement jobs around the state, and it's extremely competitive. These large hiring consortiums, I guess, to maybe get a job somewhere throughout the state. Does having a bachelor's degree give you a foot up on other people?
Having a degree, in my opinion, if I was able to go back, and if my parents hadn't been in an accident, I would have gone back to get my degree. But yes, having the degree can help, especially some departments, not in the state specifically, not in Montana, but there are departments that require a bachelor's degree or 4-year degree. Military does have a preference for hiring. Now, the consortium that they do what I suggest is if that's something that you want to stay in Montana and do, go through the consortium, but notify a department that you're interested in specifically first, saying, I'm ex-military, serving Marines or any of the branch of the government, and I'm interested in law enforcement. I'm going to do the consortium, but I'm very interested in your department. A representative from our department or any of the departments that are involved that will be there, and make contact with that department and maintain contact with that department. And what that does is, it's always, just the greasy wheel. You want to grease that wheel entirely in there. And having that military, I went up against people with military preferences too. And I mean, that's the right to have that as well. And there's some good officers that we have quite a few officers in our department that did serve in the military, or that are ex-military right now. So you have that leg up, especially if you served in a military police capacity in the military, or if you have that enforcement already, that gives you a leg up as well going into that, because you know about protocols and procedures and things like that. So what I would do is go to that consortium or tell your friends to go to it, and specifically target which departments you want to be with and get in contact with and maintain contact with them.
More questions? Go ahead. Did you have your hand up? Sorry. How does one find, get into an academy? I mean, what are the steps to get into law enforcement?
Well, what I did, back then, Montana, what they did is half the class was pre-service, and half of it was uniformed officers. And you had so many slots to fill. And if you want to go through the academy, one, you can either go get hired by our department. You go through the testing process, which is proctored through the state. It's all one test. All the departments have the same test. As well as, once the testing is done, if you score a certain higher percentage, you can qualify for interviews based upon the scale of who's highest, as well as there's preferences, some points that can be added to that scale. And if you're hired by the department, they will put you through the academy. You have so many months that you have to go through the academy to become post-certified. Any officer that is a police officer in any state has to be certified through their academy. It's called post certification. It's about 400 to 500 hours of training that you're going to go through. Everything from constitutional law, you're going to deal with the laws that occur or the laws that are in the books in that state, powers of arrest, everything, testifying in court, report writing as well, because we work hand in hand with the attorneys. They do not like bad reports at all. They want clear, concise, because they have to defend, or basically they're literally defending your work, and they're prosecuting based upon your work. If you don't go that route of going formally to an application process through the department, you go through the state, and the Montana.gov has a website there, mt.gov, with the academy that you can go through that way directly and inquire through the academy, which is now up in Helena, and inquire of when the testing dates would be there. You also have a physical fitness requirement. It used to be kind of ridiculous before, run a mile and a half, do some sit-ups and push-ups. Now it's called MPAT, and it simulates a lot of what you're doing. Running around, you're carrying about 25, in real life as a patrol officer, you're carrying about 25 to 30 pounds of gear. And imagine chasing someone who has no gear through streets and through creeks and stuff like that. So the physical requirements have gotten more difficult, but they're not gender biased at all whatsoever. And if you're going to go through the academy, contact Helena. But if you want to go through a specific department, contact the department. We have everything on bozemanpd.com that talks about the application process as well. A lot of the larger departments also have it on their websites too.
I have more questions. So what about, you talked about ride-alongs. I think you guys talked about you were in court, and so that's how you got it. Like shadowing, internships, and then also the employment market. That question was kind of raised, like how many officers do they hire a year, and how many positions are there, just in Bozeman?
We have internship positions. We actually have an MSU student that's an intern with us right now. And she's done everything before she actually gets to do intern work. She goes through the detective division, she goes through patrol, she goes through dispatch, She gets to know all the nuances as well. There's a background check that's done on her. She had to be NCIC certified, fingerprints, everything like that, because she's handling confidential criminal justice information potentially. So we have to go through a lot of that, but she wants to be in law enforcement where she lives. Regarding, ride-alongs, internships, in the job market, in our police department right now, we have close, I think about 60 sworn. That's up dramatically from when I started. Of course, in '95, it was nothing like it is now, as in how busy. We average between 40 and 50,000 calls a year that we respond to. So our positions, we have a mill levy here in the city, and we are authorized to hire, I think 5 officers. We can fill officers that leave, either move to another community, things like that, and we understand that we're gonna be losing officers for things like that, or retirement. In fact, when I retire, there'll be 7 of us leaving at the same time, so that's gonna leave a big gap on the department. So, yeah, I would suggest, that we do about 4 to 5 a year that we open. We don't actually end up hiring 4 to 5 due to background investigations, or they're changed their mind, or the FTO program as well. We have a field training program that's 14 weeks, where you're with another officers, you're actually rotated through different shifts and different officers, you're taught everything there as well. The success or failure of an officer on a department is directly influenced by their field training program.
What about for attorneys and prosecutors?
Well, I was gonna say, from the pre-law perspective, law school applications are down right now about 40% from the total high that they've ever been at. So law schools are not filling their classes right now. So in my opinion, if you want to go to law school, this is a primo time to actually apply. They're not lowering their standards and taking people with 2.0s or anything like that. They're keeping their standards intact, but you have much less competition. And so the other thing is, I've been saying this for a couple of years now, the New York Times, if you read that, it's all doom and gloom, that there's only so many, high-powered jobs. Well, what is a high-powered job? There are a lot of jobs that can use a JD, that can use what attorneys do. That said, there was just something that came out on the pre-law listserv that in 2016, they're anticipating a major need for attorneys, and I knew that was going to come down the pike. And to be honest, there's a lot of old guys, and literally they're men, who need to retire. It's true. There was a partner at the law firm. He was one of the guys whose name was in the founding thing. He must have been about 300, and he would come in every day. He came in every day in his little corner office. I think he slept most of the day, but he would come in, and he was not leaving. So there's a lot of people, a lot of nails, who are still out there practicing, doing their thing. A lot of small towns. I was talking to, it was the Montana State Bar Coordinator, and she said there are a lot of small towns in Montana, and she's in a consortium with other people in the region who do this. If people are willing to go to those small towns, there are attorneys there who want to sell their practice, who want to turn it over to someone new and young who's willing to take it and run. They can't get people to come there. So if people are willing to maybe live outside a big city, or something a little different, there are a lot of jobs out there. So that's from the pre-law perspective.
A couple things just popped in my head listening to Denise. I would recommend not pursuing a career in law if you think that is the path to easy money. At least in Montana, that generally is not the case. And there's something else that just escaped me. Oh well. As far as I have a long day today. As far as our office goes, we do hire an intern every year. For better or for worse, that intern is a law student, usually at the University of Montana. But we do have intern opportunities. But if you want to get just an idea of kind of the law, how it works, what happens in court, it's open to the public. There are 3 courts here in Bozeman. There's municipal court, there's justice court, and there's district court. All 3 of them do stuff all the time, every day for the most part. And I think that you can get a good feel for the courtroom just going in and observing. Another thing that I wanted to mention here is that as you go forward and you're trying to decide what career path to pursue, obviously you want to develop the best marketable skills that you can. And hopefully those are reflected with your grades. That's obviously important. Another thing that I would recommend is that, and it's probably something that'll more difficult for an employer to get a beat on, but equally important is character. Montana is a small community, whether you're in the legal community or just in the community at large. Reputations go a long ways. So just, we all know that grades and skills and intelligence and all that stuff that traditionally is associated with school is very important. Don't skip the fact that your character, your integrity, having a reputation for honesty, that sort of thing is equally important. And once you get out in the job market, especially if you get in the legal market, the legal community is small. And word gets around pretty quick if you have integrity issues. So decide now that your standard is the gold standard. So for whatever that's worth, don't let that slip by. And I would have less work if more people lived that way.
Just security, yeah. Any last questions here?
What's it like emotionally working as a prosecutor or in the law enforcement community? Is it ever depressing? You know, my sister has a job where she works with disadvantaged youths that probably shouldn't be with the parents they're at, but there's really, you know, everything's held back. Does that ever really get to you?
Yes. I'll go first. So my last job at the county attorney's office, I did a little different work than I do here, but for 6.5 years or so, I handled a lot of routine things. I mean, we did speeding tickets and driving while suspended, traffic stuff, petty theft, a lot of routine stuff. We also dealt with some real serious heartbreaking cases, child rape cases, ugly things that happened. And it can be emotionally exhausting. I think that's something to consider as you go into the law field, especially if you're looking at criminal justice, because that's the reality of it. Criminal justice deals with some of the horrific things that people do to each other. And if that is something that you can't deal with on a day-to-day basis, look at natural gas regulation. And so, so it can be. For me personally, it's kind of a fine line because I think it's important not to lose that empathy and that human touch and understanding what's happening to people. But it can't, at the same time, it can't drown you. You got to survive and keep going through it. So I think I figured out a good balance and a good way to deal with that and cope with it. But it's a reality. So, and it's probably easier for me than a lot of the officers because it's the prosecutor. We get, we're dealing with it, the aftermath. We're seeing photographs and reading reports and talking to the victims in our office as opposed to showing up and getting blood on their boots. So it's different from that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't deal with my first dead people until I was a police officer. Or it's one of those positions, it's unique. And you kind of make it up as you go along. Because the thing that I really enjoyed about being a police officer, I tell people, is every day is different. You can have a day where it's like, oh, this clock cannot go any faster. It is so slow right now. And then you're going from a robbery to a rape to a homicide to a domestic. You're taking a mother or a father away from their children. You're getting yelled at, it's your fault. You're photographing a dead infant. You're having to give a death notification to a family of a boy that's been murdered, execution style. You're holding a person together that's been in a car accident, and they're asking to please don't let me die. And so it's a lot of emotions. And the thing I've learned also, law enforcement, high alcoholism rate. There's a high suicide rate because there was never ever opportunity. Same thing with the military. They had to deal with what's called shell shock at first, and then it evolved into PTSD and things like that. Now they're starting to get resources for military that deal with this constantly for a period of time. Battle fatigue, officers go through it too, where they're continually dealing with this. That's why officers in big cities really don't last that long. They're pretty short. They look for a smaller department to go to, where we might have this or we might have that, but it's not the frequency of it. So you ask, okay, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke, and so you're like, okay, how does Charlie get to relax? So my friends want to go, hey, let's hit the bar afterwards, or let's go do that. I'm like, well, I do what's called, I touch a tree for a little while. I go to the backyard, I just kind of veg a little, and I'll look at some YouTube videos or something like that on my phone. And it's just to be able to decompress. I'm away from the family, I can just be by myself, I can relax. And if it's been a real crappy day, I'll call my wife and say, you know what, it was a bad day, I can't talk to you about it or tell you about it, but it's been a bad day. She'll hear about it in the news the next day. But it's just, she knows that, you know what, it's time just to relax for a little bit, to veg. Maybe turn on some television, watch a little Big Bang Theory, something like that, kind of take me off so I can just get rid of it. Because they're getting secondhand what we see firsthand. And still you have to keep your wits about you. You still have to treat the suspect with respect. Because like you said, at the end of this career that you have, either in law or law enforcement, all you have is your name. So when you leave that career, they're going to remember you either as a good person, a credible person, or with high character, or they're going to see you as corrupt or crook. We have corrupt police officers in the country, we have corrupt doctors, lawyers, and everything like that. One slip up and you can be labeled. This community's small enough to where Gapmeyer, oh, you're the principal's kid. Now it's Gapmeyer, oh, your son's the football player. It's not Gapmeyer, you're the cop, but fortunately. But it's one of those things that when you're in your career, you really have to be careful of what you do. You always have to think, I got a video camera. I'm being watched all the time. I have to protect somebody's rights regardless of how mean they are. There's no such thing as contempt of cop. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as that. But that's the thing is, I've learned in this job, yeah, I get spit on, I've been sworn at, I've been punched, I've been told that it's my fault that their child has died, it's my fault that I'm sending that their son is going to prison, or their daughter's going to prison, or that their daughter was, something happened terrible to their child. But in the end is, it's short term. It's not going to stick with you forever, and that's where you have to really think, is this something I'm built for and want to do? And that's why I say, really research and study what you want to do. In law, you're going to experience a lot of the things, you're going to see those things. Law, you're going to have to answer to those families. These families that maybe think, justice, I didn't get justice. Well, your interpretation of what justice is what you didn't get. So, yeah, it's one of those, yeah, you can be on a high one minute and a low another, but I love it. It's a roller coaster, and I'd do it all over again.
Well, it's true, you do see things you never imagined that you'd see before, and you have to come up with some coping skill. I ran a lot, so I could run marathons then. And yeah, you never know what's going to walk in your office, you never know that you're going to go see a dead body, and there was a case that actually pushed me over the edge, and I was the attorney on call, it was Friday night, and I was getting ready to leave, and here comes the detective, he's like, go back, we've got work to do, and it was an abduction and a rape of a 7-year-old girl by a repeat sexual offender. And, you know, you have to hold it together, you have to be professional and do what you have to do, but literally that night I got in my car and I put my head on the steering wheel and I cried. It was like, this is just, I cannot believe this scum walks the earth, but I have no strong opinions here. And you know, it just, you have to really be able to separate yourself, and that was probably the hardest case I ever had to go, okay, I've got to be objective, I have to be professional, and I have to hold it together in the courtroom because I wanted to choke this person myself, but you know, you can't do that, and you just have to get through and find something that's a good outlet.
What happened to him?
He will never leave the Wyoming State Pen, thank you very much.
Just for, okay, one last really quick question. Do you ever get to hear the rest of the story, Charlie?
Sometimes I get letters from the prisoners.
Oh, do you?
A lot of the people that I put away think I'm a really nice guy. Because the way we approach interviews is we're their best friend, and sometimes you're their advocate to get a confession and things like that. So you have to take a different approach to it. You know, attorneys kind of do the same things too as well. Excellent interviewers. You're going to learn some excellent interview skills, either if you're an attorney or if you're a law enforcement officer. So, yeah, sometimes you come away thinking, you know, what happened, or what was the result here. But it's those times, I guarantee you, all the garbage and crap you deal with for an extended period of time, it's the one time where someone says thank you, or you get that card that says thank you for all you did, or you get someone who's been in prison and comes out and says thank you, it was crappy, I was rude to you, it was mean. It's great to see that, you know, this is why I did what I did. You know, you might get 10, 12 bad cases or something like that, but it's that one that really makes it worthwhile. It makes you keep doing what you want to do. It's a lot of fun. And sometimes you might not have a clue what's happened down the road. But there are those that will keep in touch with you and let you know that you did a good job.
I think Robin's ready to wrap it up for anything else to add, you guys?
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll be as quick as I can to get you guys out of here as timely as possible. So I'm just gonna go through some data really quickly, and this is across all majors. This is a pretty linear graph. It's probably nothing unexpected, but it's equivalencies of degrees and earnings. So the higher you go, the more you're gonna make. I mean, I don't think that's gonna surprise anybody. We do collect survey data from MSU students when they graduate each year. It's called the Career Destinations. We have these booklets in our office if you are interested. We have a pretty decent response rate. The majority of students do report being employed or in grad school full-time. Almost 15% are employed part-time, only 5% are unemployed and are not in grad school, and 2% were not seeking employment, whatever that category is, Peace Corps, lucky them. So the types of organizations that employ MSU grads, the majority, obviously almost half of it is in business and industry, and then education and healthcare are tied, and then everything else is much smaller. So this is also pretty interesting. Almost every degree, the majority of students are able to stay in state. Music, that might be different, I don't know specifically, with the exception of engineering, which is almost actually at 50%. This is probably the most relevant to you, and the panelists did mention this significantly today, so please do internalize this. The internship, the biggest factor in securing a job is experience, and this is specifically related to your major, an internship or a co-op program. So they've said internships a million times, and I'm just going to reiterate that is crucial, and especially considering this slide. The top way that a graduate found their job is they knew their employer or referred by somebody that the employer knew. And I suspect from hearing today that number is much higher for music. So please, please, please think about it. It's networking, it's building your own brand, it's communicating with people, it's crucial, especially it sounds like in this field. We're running out of time, so I'm gonna skip through these. But some key points to take with you. Again, thank you guys for saying this so often, but do an internship, and in this case, it sounds like multiple. This is really, and they're hit it right on the dot. you're not gonna know what you don't like to do if you don't do an internship, in addition to what you do like. And employers wanna know that. If you're able to go with experience and say, I've done this, I know I don't wanna do this, that's really important knowledge. So the more internships, especially here, the better. Communicate with your advisor, that again, communication, it's all about, long-term contacts. Use the services and tools that we have available for you. And again, network. So thank you guys very much for coming, and let's thank our panel again.